Hello, in this video, we're going to be going over how to build a people-proof tracking system inside of your online coaching, consulting, or agency business so that you can scale your operations from 6 to 7 figures. Okay, so this took me around an entire day to map out. This is all the systems and processes for tracking the different metrics inside of our online digital service. Throughout working with over 220 online service providers within our Done For You and Done With You program that we offer. Okay, but that's not what this is going to be about, our program at all. This is going to be an educational training video showing you exactly how you can save more time inside of your business, remove yourself from the sales process, from the client success process, from the operations inside of your business, and actually make decisions that are driven on data instead of emotions. And I always thought this was the hardest thing to do. And I always overthought it. I always thought it was super hard. And whenever I wanted to track KPIs, we never ended up doing it. And that was one of the biggest regrets early on because I didn't know what was going on inside of my business. I couldn't make, decisions off of predictive analysis with future projections of revenue inside of the business or client success inside of the business. So this is going to be a combination of those systems. But before I go into this, why am I qualified to even speak about this? You probably just clicked on this video. Maybe you know who I am. Maybe you don't. Recommend checking myself out on YouTube, some of the other videos. But if you don't know who I am, I essentially, it sounds funny, but I'm a 22-year-old entrepreneur who helps other online service providers implement simple systems and processes so that they can scale their business. We help people with a framework that I came up with called SCALE: systemize, consolidate, automate, leverage, and evaluate. This is going to be specifically the evaluate part of our framework. And I've been doing this for the last 2 years. So I'm going to go ahead and show you why I'm qualified to speak about this to begin with. Okay, so with $0 in ad spend, and this is not including TikTok, promotions, wire transfers, or Zelle, I was able to make over $200,000 within my first 14 months of online business. As you can see here, one Stripe account. This was the second venture that we had started. It didn't end up taking off like we thought it would. These are debit ACH transfers directly to my bank account, around $35K. And then we ended up switching payment processors due to high volume, and we were deemed as high risk because of that increase in volume. And so we actually ended up moving to a merchant processor, which I recommend all of you guys do. That's what all the big guys do, through Authorize.net and Elavon through US Bank. Pretty confusing process, but we had to learn it. So you can see here, over $200,000 cash collected with $0 in ad spend. So this is exactly how I went from, this is my story right here. It doesn't get any more raw than this. This is me around 2 years ago at my internship. Ended up quitting because they didn't have the right systems and processes to even take me on. And my day-to-day was so stressful. No SOPs, no project management tool. And I actually started this business based off of the failures that I saw inside of this startup that, actually ruined my first experience with a corporate job. So I ended up going and starting my own business, as you can see here. And I was able to leverage the resources at my university throughout the first 4 months, something a lot of people overlook when they're in college. I was in the business school, as you can see around here. 5 months in, I made my first 10K month by doing this. And so when I hit that 10K month, I was living in a fraternity house, as you can see right here, my little small messy room in the frat composite. I was heavily involved on campus. I was holding leadership positions throughout different organizations. I was running my business. My grades were dropping. And so I had to make a decision. And on New Year's Eve, while everyone was out partying, I was on a call with a mentor at the time, and he had convinced me to drop out. So what did I do? I took a 6-month gap semester, told my family if I didn't make 20K by the end of the gap semester, I'd be going back to school. So I set out to do it. And on this call right here, around 1 month after moving out, I ended up replacing my entire income from working with small business owners and local businesses to making the same amount that I would make an entire month on one hour Zoom call. So this was my introduction to high ticket. As you guys may know, if you are in high ticket, it is an amazing feeling, right? So I ended up firing around half of my clients locally that didn't know how to use the tools that we had given and set up for them. That was the entire reason we did to implement it in their business. I was running all of it for them, ended up firing half of those clients and keeping the other half, and focused on creating a entire agency around integrating the right systems and processes into other businesses. Okay. And so I actually ended up right after that, super hyped up, invested the most amount of money I've ever invested into a mastermind with some 7-8 figure business owners. As you can see here, I ended up running into Tim Ferriss. And right after this, I ended up reading 4 Hour Work Week. And I was so inspired by what I had seen. I ended up creating a done with you offer that went with our done for you, which now has over 100 6, 7, 8 figure business owners inside of it learning how to automate their business. If you're interested, link down below, but that's not what this video is about. So then I ended up traveling as I was scaling this business. And because of the systems I'm going to show you, I was able to track every metric inside of my company, all of my team members, all of my cash flow, all of the appointments, everything with the system I'm about to show you. And I was even able to operate at scale and grow the company while traveling to Miami, right? Traveling to London, right? So I ended up actually moving out of my new downtown apartment because of the growth inside of my business. I reinvested back into myself, my living space, and my content with getting a pretty nice apartment, as you can see here. That was at around 25K per month. I ended up actually speaking at the Go High Level Summit, getting invited to speak on behalf of other young entrepreneurs using Go High Level as a CRM inside of their company. It's a great tool. If you haven't, check it out. We only use it as a CRM. It's one of like 25 tools that we use. It's not going to go over it in this video, but ended up going to Japan and then finally Dubai. And so here we are now. The screenshot was taken today. Over 600,000 views, every 60 days with over 40,000 followers, and content has absolutely changed my life because videos like this, I'm able to share everything that I have learned from this journey. So now that that's over, and maybe you guys skipped it, this is exactly how to build a people-proof tracking system to scale your operations from 6 to 7 figures, okay? So we're gonna start right here with client success, okay? So there are 3 things that you need in order to have this system, all right? So you need somebody, first you need a Google Sheet, right? And it needs to be set up, and I'll show you that. And the second thing that you need is, a Slack channel. And the third thing that you need is some Zapier automations to automate data into the KPI sheets and then automate data outside from the KPI sheet to outside of the KPI sheet, and then an automation to send these monthly KPI updates that I'm going to go over here in a second. So those are the only 3 things you need. You don't have to go fancy with it. It looks like it's going to be, difficult to understand, but this is the easiest thing and the best thing you can do inside of your business. All right. So the first thing that we have is we have a Google Sheet with 6 different sheets inside of it. One for my client success manager to track client messages, inbound and outbound, client intake, like new clients onboarded and their information, as well as you can see up here what is manual, the data entry, and what is automated. So this is manual, this is manual, this is manual, everything else is automated. Client intake, client calls, recordings, AI transcriptions, notes about calls, feedback and surveys from after calls that we get from clients and members inside of our program, project updates for our clients, and then project blockers. So we have 6 different sheets, as you can see here. So we either have a team member inputting the data on a daily basis manually for the manual ones, or we have a Zap. For example, every time a client fills out an onboarding form, it zaps them into here. Anytime we have a new Zoom recording, it zaps them into here, right? So we have, for this specific thing, a client success manager using 3 different sheets on a daily basis, putting in that data. And so the Google Sheet should look something like this. This is a great example of the client tracker number 1. We have, for example, date, client name, client type. We have multiple different offers, right? Team member that was either sending or receiving the message topic, right? Billing, welcome, call, progress, the platform the message was on, the status, whether it was inbound or outbound, whether it was a reply or was a new thread, was it elevated to myself or to another team member, what was the exact message, and any additional info. So now you can see when we go into the master sheet, we can actually run these numbers against each other. So how many messages that were inbound were from Instagram, all right? How many progress updates per client, right? What amount of messages were new threads? So we can actually use these numbers by just using a simple equal, count if this row equals Instagram, right? So that's what I'm going to go over as well. So what we're doing is we're either manually or automatically updating each of these sheets with one, big sheet that has all these 6 sheets inside of it. And from that, we are measuring the different KPIs or key performing indicators that I went over, right? So I said, for example, status, how many were inbound. So extra row equals how many out of all of them are inbound. So those are, obviously it's going to be custom to what metrics you want to track, but you can just, divide the numbers, multiply them by each other to come up with the variables that you want to track inside of the business. You don't need multiple different sheets to do it. You just need to do the drop down selection as you see here. So what we do is we actually get KPIs from this data over time, and we centralize all the KPIs from sheet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we have like 6 of these for different topics, as you see here: feedback, project updates, project blockers, and we host all of the metrics on one master tracker, okay? And so a master tracker could look something like this, right? So it has different charts, graphs, and it just shows you projections of the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days of revenue inside the business, or whatever we're tracking. For this specifically, we're tracking client success. So for each of all of these things, we have a master tracker. And that master tracker, actually daily, weekly, and monthly, we have a Zap workflow to where it takes the sell value and it puts them into a template, into a Slack message, so that once a week, or daily, once a week, and monthly, we can actually, without even opening up the sheet, get a notification. The entire team can see if they're meeting their KPIs, right? And we can make decisions off the KPIs about what's going wrong, right? So why are, Slack is our client communication platform. Why are 50% of our messages on school or on Gmail, right? We need to centralize. So you can make decisions off of data instead of emotions, being mad that you have too many emails one day, that you signed up for an email list. You're like, oh, I'm not going to have clients email me anymore. So now we can make decisions off of important data. So this is the client success fulfillment tracker, right? And so here's an example of the Slack KPI bot, something like this: weekly KPI summary, page views, call to action clicks, like new signups, trial starts. So you use emojis and everything, and you can use, I swear it's not as hard as it looks. There's no coding at all if you use Zapier. There's code right here, but if you use Zapier, you don't need to do that. And I actually teach that in other videos. Awesome. So that's the client success tracker. Now you can assume the same goes for the sales and appointments. So during the sales process, like, what do we even want to track? So how much total engagement are we getting, right? 600,000 every 60 days. How many out of those, are opt-ins? How many out of those are booked calls? How many out of those are disqualified? How many out of those are qualified? How many out of those are closed? So this is a whole, client or prospect journey where some of these aspects, like I had said, are manual. Others, we can automate the data going into it, but we're making sure somebody inside of the company, a virtual assistant or a team member, is doing this, right, on a daily basis. So same goes like with the other sheet, looks exactly like this. We go ahead and write down all the engagement, all the, on the different platforms, right? All of the opt-ins, all of the booked calls, the qualified, and we get more KPIs, right? So over the course of time, we can do more formulas to calculate, out of all engagement, how much was on TikTok? Out of all of the TikTok engagement, how many opted in? Out of all of the TikTok engagement, how many closed? So then we can actually, it gets deadly. We can say, oh my gosh, all I have to do is hit 100,000 views every month on TikTok to make 30K a month inside of the business. Because there's industry set rates for opt-in, right? It could be around 10%, and booked call, like another 10%. So we need to know all these numbers, right? Even if we're not looking at each individual KPI sheet, we need some way to just store them, and so that we can actually get this data and make decisions on it. So each one turns into KPIs on their own sheet. Once again, we have a master tracker sheet that then goes ahead and sends out that daily, weekly, and monthly KPI message inside of the Slack channel. So we don't even have to look at the sheet to view the metrics, right? So now we're making decisions on, how do we need a new video sales letter? Do we need to make more content? Do we need a better qualification process, etc., right? So hopefully this is making sense by now. And then we have operations, right? So this is a unique one. It might not apply to you, but I have a systems integrator inside of my business who builds assets like forms, sheets, calendars, like different email copy, different assets. And then he also builds automations inside of Zapier. He builds standard operating procedures with like Scribe or with Google Docs or ChatGPT. He, handles IT errors if things break, as well as he builds training using Loom on those SOPs. And he also does tech updates every once in a while for our systems, just refining them a little different than IT errors. And so this stuff can all be tracked too, right? So we can have another sheet with new assets with different filters. What type of asset was it? Was it a calendar? Was it a form? So now on a daily basis or a weekly basis, how many new assets do we have? How many of those assets are forms? How many of those assets are, Google Sheets, right? So how many out of the assets requested were actually, produced? How many automations did we build this month? How many broke? How many do we, et cetera? How many are live? How many? So hopefully you guys get this, and we don't need to do too much. All you need is 10 different columns with a different drop down options, and then understand how to do equals, one row minus the other or divided by the other. Okay. So same thing goes with operations, goes to another tracker sheet, which then builds KPIs on each sheet, which then all those KPIs with the Zap, it takes the, once a week or once a day, it finds that row inside of the sheet, and it literally just takes that data column and it plugs it into a template, into a Slack message to send out daily, weekly, and monthly so that we understand what's going on inside the business. All right. So from here, I also went over the scale framework in a last video that allows us to systemize any process, as well as our appointment setting flow and our client success flow. But it's important to note that this is only the data tracking, right? So in other videos and other assets that we have like this, I'm going to go over, we also, whenever we get a booked call, a sales call, it sends a Slack message. Whenever we record a client call, it automatically uploads to a Drive folder. It sends us a Slack message. It takes the Fireflies AI transcription. It adds it to the sheet. It adds it to a Google Drive folder. So for client intake, the Google form populates to a Google Doc, which creates their Google Drive folder, which places it in there and then sends us a Slack message with their information. So this that I'm showing you right now is just data storage and analyzing and coming up with KPIs inside of your business. I have not even touched on the other steps of consolidating information, creating resources, sending emails, all that stuff, which is involved in here. But I wanted to make this simple because you don't need all that stuff first. But I would definitely recommend setting this up if you are at around $20,000 to $50,000 and you're trying to scale. Because from the clients I've worked with, we implement these exact systems for our clients so they can track their metrics. And all of them are crushing it because they can make decisions and understand what's going on in the business, how much money they're going to make next month if they make this amount of content or run this amount of ads, right? So hopefully you guys thought this was super valuable. If you want the link to this exact thing, then go ahead and click the link down below. There'll be an option to do that. If you want to book a call with myself or my team to actually go over your current processes and set something like this up for you, and go ahead and book a call. I worked really hard on this. So even if, you have no interest, please, share this with a friend. If you think this is valuable, if you've never seen somebody talk about the actual infrastructure that goes into building a 6-7 figure online service provider business. So yeah, thank you guys so much. And hopefully check out some of my other videos. Give me some feedback down below and follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you guys in the next one.